Hello, my name is Maile Juarez, and I am going to be talking about alternative meat for BMED 213. First, I'm going to go over the problem introduction. Then I'm going to talk about the biology of current meat alternatives. Then I'm going to touch on some 3D printed solutions. And finally, I'm going to hit the impacts. All right, so let's go. All right, so why alternative meat? Well, some people have ethical issues. A lot of my friends who are vegetarians cite this as their main source. And look, I'm not going to include that in the presentation, but if you're curious, definitely look up factory farms. There's definitely some shady stuff going on there. Additionally, beef isn't actually very efficient. In order to produce 1 kilogram of beef, let's compare 1 kilogram of beef to 1 kilogram of kidney beans. To produce the beef, it takes 10 times the water, 9 times the fuel, 12 times the fertilizer, 10 times the pesticides, just to produce the same amount of, kidney beans aren't meat, but it's protein, right? Despite taking up 60% of the agricultural land, cows only make up about 2% of the calories consumed worldwide, and only 4% of the calories that they eat are consumed by people. They're also not very environmentally friendly. They make 14.5 to 18% of greenhouse gas emissions, through processing as well. And additionally, they produce methane through flatulence. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to be a vegetarian here. I'm not a vegetarian, right? But there are a lot of people who make this choice. And this presentation is sort of about finding good alternatives for those people. And look, honestly, if there was a alternative that was much more environmentally friendly, but that tasted the same, I would probably choose that. Yeah. Also, I didn't talk about this when I was recording my drawing, but they use 3D printed meat in space. So I did really want to talk about that application as well. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the biology of current meat alternatives. There are two types. There are plant-based and animal-based. I'm going to talk about plant-based meats first. The real struggle with these is getting the taste, texture, look, etc., right? Because there's a big difference between, a black bean burger and a hamburger, right? One of the big issues is lipids. Animals tend to have saturated fats, while plants tend to have less saturated fats, right? So we've got the double carbon bonds here in the plant fats over here. This means that your plants will have a lower boiling temperature, which is why your canola oil is liquid and your butter is solid. So in order to get around this issue, scientists have found that coconut oil behaves more like an animal fat. So that is what a lot of people are using right now. Animals and plants also have different proteins. Animals have springier proteins because those proteins need to be able to move around a lot more than plants, which are much stiffer. So in order to get around that, scientists have again tried to find plants that have similar structures, and they've found that peas and wheat have springier, more flexible proteins that simulate animal proteins. Finally, we want to make sure that the look is right. So we're talking about sort of that bloodiness of meat. Beyond Meat uses beet extracts to color their burgers, and a company called Impossible Foods actually relies on this compound called legemoglobin. I had to look that up. Which is actually an oxygen-carrying molecule that is found in the roots of legumes like soy. It has a red color, and Impossible says it actually has a meaty flavor. All right, and on to the animal replacements, which is a little bit simpler, I guess. A lot of times, replacement meat from animals is called test tube meat. It is not literally grown in a test tube, but it is grown in a petri dish. So what they do is they have these stem cells that are removed painlessly from an animal. These stem cells are then exercised and fed. They're not actually lifting dumbbells, right? They have these resistance Velcros that give them exercise. I think that's really adorable. These guys can grow 20 to 30 millimeters in 3 weeks. And once you've got 20,000 cells, that is enough to produce a 5-ounce burger. So this is the method that's actually being used in the International Space Station. They're 3D printing meat, and I'm actually going to talk about that next. All right, so before I started researching for this project, I had no idea that 3D printed meat was a thing, and it's actually really cool. So this part is just going to be mostly videos so that you can see how it's done. Just like before, there's going to be 2 types. There's going to be plant and animal-based. What they do is, just like any 3D printer thing, it goes in layers, and there's going to be a portion of fat, a portion of protein, and a portion of blood. And so they sort of just mix those in really, really cool layers. One of the great things about it is it's repeatable and sanitary. KFC is going to have 3D printed chicken soon. And as I mentioned, this is the method being used in space. And I know that might look a little janky, but I have included here some pictures of what it actually looks like when it's cooked. I cannot tell the difference between the real thing. Obviously, I haven't tasted it, but there was this company in Israel who had a food truck, and they said that 90% of the people couldn't tell the difference taste-wise, which is crazy, right? A lot of the companies who are doing that was a plant-based study, and so a lot of the people who are doing animal-based are involving people who are really into tissue engineering, because for proteins, it doesn't just matter the composition of the protein, it also matters the alignment, the shape, all of that, and they're getting really precise, down to like the millimeter scale. So a very scientific and biologically correct process. All right, so in talking about the impacts, I am going to circle back to some of the things I talked about in section 1. We'll have a reduction of environmental impact, especially concerning the methane, right? Because cows especially produce methane. And while the processing of this meat may still produce some greenhouse gases, we can at least know that we are reducing the amount of methane that we're releasing into the atmosphere. And methane is one of the really bad ones, right? Some of the plant-based meats do involve GMOs, which is sort of a, hot button topic. So, a lot of people are concerned about this, and depending on where you fall, you might be too. People haven't tried eating some of these genetically modified plants like the legemoglobin. God, I butchered that. Also, 3D printing meat, if this does become a more mechanized process, it might make meat cheaper so that more people are able to have access to protein. Overall, I think that this could be great. I do not think it is going to completely replace meat, but if it replaces a little bit of it, I think that's a good thing. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.